The bridge of the USS Valkyrie hummed with quiet efficiency. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars streak past on the main view screen. His ship was beautiful, painted white with a large red cross on its hull. Everyone who saw it knew this was a medical vessel, designed to save lives across the galaxy. What they did not know was that beneath that peaceful exterior, the Valkyrie carried enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. Jake was a tall man with dark hair and tired eyes. He had served in the Earth Defense Forces for 20 years before taking command of this medical ship. Some people thought it was strange that a combat veteran was running a hospital ship, but Jake knew the truth. In this dangerous galaxy, even doctors needed to know how to fight. The communication system suddenly came alive with a loud beeping sound. Lieutenant Commander Amy Chen jumped in her seat and quickly worked on her control panel. She was the ship's communications officer, a young woman with quick hands and a sharp mind. Her fingers moved fast across the holographic controls, trying to understand the incoming signal. "Captain, we have an incoming distress call," Amy said, her voice filled with concern. "It's on the Universal Emergency Channel. The language is not in our database, but the computer is working on a translation right now." Jake leaned forward in his chair. Distress calls were always serious business. In the vastness of space, a cry for help could mean the difference between life and death for thousands of people. "Where is it coming from?" he asked. "The Thalrene sector, sir. About 2 days away at maximum speed." Amy paused as more information appeared on her screen. "Captain, the translation is coming through now. It's from the Thalrene Collective. They're asking for immediate medical help." The mention of the Thalrene made everyone on the bridge pay attention. The Thalrene were one of the oldest races in the Galactic Assembly. They had been exploring space for thousands of years, long before humans even invented the wheel. They were known as a peaceful people, gentle and kind. They were also known for being very fragile. A Thalrene could be seriously hurt from a fall that a human would barely notice. "What kind of medical emergency?" Jake asked, though he was already making the decision to help. It was not really a choice. When someone called for help, you answered. That was the rule Jake lived by. Amy's face went pale as she read the information on her screen. "Sir, there's been some kind of disease outbreak on their main colony world, Thalrene Prime. They're reporting thousands of sick people already. Their hospitals are full and they can't handle any more patients, Captain. They're specifically asking for human doctors and nurses." That last part made Jake raise his eyebrows. Humans had only joined the Galactic Assembly 15 years ago. In the grand timeline of galactic history, that was like yesterday. Most of the older alien races still saw humans as newcomers, children who did not understand how things worked. But there was one thing that made humans special in the eyes of other species. Humans came from Earth, and Earth was what the galaxy called a death world. A death world was a planet so dangerous that most aliens could not survive there. Earth had strong gravity that would crush the bones of many species. It had diseases that could kill in days. It had predators that hunted in packs. It had weather that could freeze or burn. And somehow humans had not just survived on this nightmare planet. They had thrived. They had become the dominant species. This made humans very valuable when it came to medical emergencies. Human immune systems were incredibly strong. They had to be, to survive all the diseases on Earth. Human doctors understood pain and trauma in ways that aliens from peaceful worlds could not imagine. And human bodies were tough enough to work in environments that would kill other species. The door to the bridge opened, and Dr. Henry Brooks walked in. He was the chief medical officer of the Valkyrie, a man in his late 50s with gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He had been a combat medic in 3 different wars before joining the medical corps. He knew how to save lives under fire, and his hands never shook no matter how bad things got. "I heard the distress call on the medical channel," Henry said, walking up to stand next to Jake's chair. "The Thalrene want us because we can handle almost any disease. If this outbreak is as bad as they say, they need someone who won't get sick while treating patients." "That's us," Jake nodded slowly. He trusted Henry's judgment completely. If the doctor said the Thalrene needed human help, then that was the truth. "How long until we can be ready to respond?" he asked. "My teams are always ready, Captain. We can deploy the moment we arrive." Henry paused, then added, "But I need to warn you. If this disease is spreading as fast as the message suggests, we might be walking into a war zone. Not a war with guns, but a war against death itself." Jake looked at his navigation officer, Lieutenant Greg Foster. Greg was a young man, barely 30, but he was the best pilot Jake had ever worked with. "Greg, how fast can you get us to Thalreen Prime?" Greg's fingers moved across his control panel, calculating routes and jump points. "If we push the engines to maximum and take the direct jump route, we can be there in 36 hours, sir. But that's going to be hard on the crew and the ship." "Then that's what we do," Jake said firmly. He stood up from his command chair and looked at his crew. Every face on the bridge was focused and ready. This was what they had trained for. This was why they were out here, flying through the dangerous emptiness of space. "Amy, send a response to the Thalreen. Tell them the USS Valkyrie is coming and we'll be there as fast as possible. Greg, plot that course and get us moving. Henry, prepare your medical teams for everything." He paused for a moment, then added one more order. "Amy, also send a message to Earth Command. Let them know we're responding to an alien medical emergency in the Thalreen sector. Mark it as Priority 1. The crew moved quickly to carry out their orders. The Valkyrie's engines powered up to full strength, making the whole ship vibrate slightly. On the view screen, the stars began to move faster as the ship accelerated. They were heading into the unknown, answering a call for help from a species they barely knew. Jake sat back down in his command chair, his mind already working through the problems they might face. A disease outbreak on an alien world could mean many things. It could be a simple virus that just needed the right medicine. Or it could be something much worse. Something that could threaten not just the Thalreen, but the entire galaxy. What Jake did not know yet was that this was not just a medical emergency. There were forces at work in the Thalreen sector that had nothing to do with disease and everything to do with power. And when those forces discovered that a human warship had answered the call for help, everything was going to change. The Valkyrie jumped into hyperspace, leaving normal space behind in a flash of blue light. Inside the ship, doctors and nurses began preparing their medical equipment. Combat medics checked their protective gear. Scientists reviewed data on Thalreen biology, trying to understand what kind of disease could overwhelm such an advanced civilization. In the ship's armory, weapon systems came online automatically. The USS Valkyrie might look like a peaceful hospital ship, but it was designed by humans, and humans had learned long ago that in a dangerous universe, even those who healed needed to be able to defend themselves. The ship's missile batteries were loaded. The railgun was ready. The point defense lasers were charged and waiting. Jake looked at the timer, counting down the hours until they reached Thalreen Prime. 36 hours. A day and a half to prepare for whatever they would find. He hoped it would be enough time. He hoped they would arrive in time to make a difference. Most of all, he hoped that this really was just a medical emergency and nothing more. But hope, Jake had learned, was not a strategy. Hope was what you held on to when everything else failed. What mattered now was action, preparation, and the determination to save as many lives as possible, no matter what the cost. The USS Valkyrie raced through hyperspace, carrying humanity's answer to an alien world's desperate plea for help. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were bringing both medicine and the means to protect it. The USS Valkyrie dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Thalreen system. The sudden shift from faster-than-light travel back to normal space always made Jake's stomach turn slightly, but he had long ago learned to ignore the feeling. His eyes were fixed on the main view screen, taking in the scene before them. Thalreen Prime hung in space like a beautiful blue and green jewel. The planet was stunning, with clear oceans and lush forests visible even from this distance. But the space around the planet told a very different story. There were dozens of ships in orbit, some fleeing the system while others were arriving with supplies. The communication channels were filled with panicked voices speaking in languages from across the galaxy. "Captain, we're being hailed on multiple frequencies," Amy reported from her station. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. "Some are automated quarantine warnings. Others are direct requests for medical assistance. There are a lot of people down there who need help. Filter out the automated messages and put me through to whoever is running things on the planet," Jake ordered. He wanted to talk to someone in charge, someone who could give him the full picture of what they were facing. A moment later, the view screen changed to show a Thalreen official. Jake had seen pictures of the Thalreen before, but this was his first time speaking to one directly. The alien was humanoid in basic shape, but that was where the similarity ended. Their skin was a pale blue color, smooth and almost translucent. Their eyes were large and luminous, taking up much of their face. They wore flowing robes that looked expensive, though now those robes were wrinkled and stained. The Thalreen looked exhausted. There were dark circles under their eyes, and their hands shook slightly as they moved. This was someone who had not slept in days. Someone who was running on nothing but determination and desperation. "This is High Coordinator Velith of Thalreen Prime," the alien said, their voice carrying a musical quality even through the translator. "Are you the human vessel that responded to our distress call?" "Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Valkyrie," Jake replied. "We received your emergency transmission and came as fast as we could." "High Coordinator, what is your current situation?" Velith's face showed clear relief at seeing the human ship. "Captain Morrison, thank you for coming. The situation is very bad and getting worse every hour. The disease appeared 3 weeks ago in the southern continent. We thought we had it under control, but then it changed. The virus mutated into something our doctors had never seen before. Now it is spreading faster than we can track it." The High Coordinator paused, and Jake saw tears forming in those large alien eyes. "Our medical facilities are completely overwhelmed. We have thousands of patients and not enough doctors or beds, and we keep losing medical staff to the infection. So many of our best doctors and nurses have died trying to save others. The current mortality rate is 73%. Nearly 3 out of every 4 people who catch this disease will die." Dr. Henry Brooks, who had been standing quietly beside Jake's chair, stepped forward. "High Coordinator, this is Dr. Henry Brooks. I'm the Chief Medical Officer of the Valkyrie. Do you have any scientific data on this disease? We need to know how it spreads, how long it takes to make people sick, and what symptoms to look for." Velith nodded quickly. "Yes, Doctor. We are sending all of our research data to your ship right now. But I must give you a warning. This virus seems to be designed to attack nervous systems like ours. We do not know if humans will be immune to it, or if you will get sick too. I could not live with myself if we asked for your help and you died because of it." Henry gave the alien a reassuring smile. "We appreciate your concern, High Coordinator. But humans have dealt with many dangerous diseases on our own world. We will take every safety measure. Captain Morrison, I request permission to send medical teams to the surface immediately." Before Jake could give the order, Commander Lisa Grant spoke up from the tactical station. Lisa was a serious woman with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been monitoring the sensor readings since they arrived in the system. "Captain, I need to report something. I'm detecting multiple ships in orbit with active weapon systems. They're not targeting us yet, but they're clearly military vessels." Jake's attention immediately shifted to the tactical display. Sure enough, there were 6 large ships positioned around the planet. They were not Thalreen vessels. The design was different, more aggressive. These were warships, and they were watching everything that moved in this system. Velith looked uncomfortable when Jake turned back to face them. "Those are Kryn patrol ships, Captain. After the outbreak started, the Galactic Assembly sent them to establish a quarantine zone around our planet. No ship is allowed to leave this system until we can prove the disease is contained. The Kryn are here to make sure everyone follows that rule." Jake knew about the Kryn. They were one of the more aggressive species in the Galactic Assembly. While most member races preferred diplomacy and peace, the Kryn believed in military strength and strict enforcement of laws. They had basically appointed themselves as the galaxy's police force, and most other species were too afraid to tell them no. The Kryn were not cruel, but they were absolutely ruthless when it came to following rules. "I understand, High Coordinator," Jake said carefully. "We are here to help, not to break any quarantine rules. My ship and crew will remain in this system until the outbreak is over. Now please stand by while we prepare to send down our medical teams." The channel with Velith closed, and immediately another call came through. This time, the face on the view screen made several of the bridge crew shift nervously in their seats. It was a Kryn commander, and he looked exactly like every human nightmare of an alien monster. The Kryn were reptilian, with scales that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their eyes were yellow and cold, with vertical pupils like a snake. When the Kryn commander opened his mouth to speak, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. "Human vessel. This is Commander Zrathak of the Kryn Defense Fleet," the alien said, his voice coming through the translator as a harsh hiss. "You will submit to a full inspection before you are allowed to approach the planet. Our sensors indicate that your ship carries weapon systems. This is not normal for a medical vessel. Explain why you are armed." Jake had been expecting this question. It always came up when aliens saw human ships for the first time. How do you explain to peaceful species that humans could not imagine traveling without weapons? How do you tell them that even your ambulances and hospital ships were designed to fight if necessary? Jake stood up from his command chair and faced the Kryn commander directly. Commander Zrathak, the USS Valkyrie is a medical vessel. That is its primary purpose. The weapons you are detecting are standard defensive systems that all human ships carry. In the part of space where humanity comes from, we learned that unarmed ships do not last very long. We protect our doctors and patients the same way we protect everything else that matters to us. The Kryn's eyes narrowed, which somehow made him look even more dangerous. Your defensive systems include missile batteries capable of destroying other ships. You have point defense lasers that can target multiple incoming threats, and our scans show what appears to be a magnetic acceleration cannon, what you call a railgun. Commander Morrison, these are not defensive weapons. These are weapons designed to kill. Commander, we are here to save lives, not to take them, Jake said firmly. But my species has a saying. We hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Yes, we have weapons. Yes, we know how to use them. But we did not come to this system to fight. We came because people are dying and we can help them. Now, are you going to let us do our job? Or are we going to waste time arguing about ship design while thousands of Thalreen die waiting for help? The Kryn commander stared at Jake for a long, tense moment. The bridge was completely silent. Everyone was waiting to see if the alien would let them pass, or if this was going to turn into a confrontation. Finally, Zrathak spoke again. You may proceed to the planet, human, but understand this clearly. My ships will be watching everything you do. If you make any threatening moves, if you try to break quarantine, if you give us any reason to believe you are a danger to this system, we will respond with immediate and overwhelming force. Do you understand me, Captain Morrison? Perfectly clear, Commander, Jake replied. You will have no trouble from us. We are here to heal people, nothing more. The channel closed, and Jake let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. That could have gone much worse. The Kryn were known for shooting first and asking questions later when they felt threatened. The fact that Zrathak had let them pass was actually a good sign. That was tense, Amy said quietly from her station. It was necessary, Jake replied. He turned to face his crew, looking at each of them in turn. All right, everyone. Listen carefully. We are going into a situation that could be very dangerous. We have a deadly disease on the planet below, and a trigger-happy military force watching our every move. I need everyone to stay focused and professional. Henry, get your medical teams ready to deploy. Lisa, keep all weapon systems on standby, but do not activate them unless I give a direct order. Greg, plot us a course to low orbit. And everyone. The medical bay of the largest hospital on Thalreen Prime was nothing like the hospitals on Earth. Everything was designed for comfort and gentleness. The walls were painted in soft, calming colors. The lights were dim and warm. Even the medical equipment seemed to be made of smooth, rounded materials with no sharp edges. This was a hospital built for a species that felt pain more intensely than humans could imagine. But now, those peaceful halls were filled with suffering. Dr. Henry Brooks led his team through the main entrance, and the scene that greeted them was heartbreaking. The hallways were lined with sick Thalreen lying on makeshift beds. Some were in the early stages of the disease, shaking and confused. Others were much worse, their bodies failing as the virus destroyed their nervous systems. The sounds of pain and fear filled the air. Henry's team consisted of some of the best medical personnel humanity had to offer. Dr. Patricia Moore was a virologist who had spent 20 years studying dangerous diseases. She was a short woman with sharp eyes that could spot patterns others missed. Lieutenant Kyle Bennett was a combat medic who had served in war zones across human space. He was tall and strong, with the calm confidence that came from saving lives under fire. Behind them came nurses, technicians, and enough medical equipment to run a small hospital. A Thalreen doctor met them at the entrance to the critical care ward. The alien was wearing a full protective suit, though Henry could still see the exhaustion in their movements. This was someone who had been working without rest, pushing themselves beyond their limits to save others. Dr. Brooks, I am Dr. Sylvan. Thank you for coming to help us, the Thalreen said, their voice shaking slightly. But I must warn you before you go any further. This virus is extremely dangerous. We have lost 42 doctors and nurses already. They died trying to save their patients. I do not want human deaths on my conscience as well. Henry gave Dr. Sylvan a reassuring smile, though the alien could not see it through his helmet. Doctor, I appreciate your concern for our safety, but humans have an advantage that your species does not. We come from a planet that is considered a death world by galactic standards. Our immune systems evolved to fight off thousands of different diseases. We are much harder to kill than you might think. Now please show us to your patients. We have work to do. Dr. Sylvan led them into the critical care ward, and even Henry, who had seen terrible things in his medical career, had to take a moment to process what he was seeing. The ward was designed to hold maybe 50 patients. Now there were at least 200 thalrene crammed into every available space. The air recycling system was struggling to keep up, and the smell of sickness was heavy despite the protective suits. The patients were in various stages of the disease. Some still had the strength to cry out in pain. Others lay silent and still, their breathing shallow and irregular. The thalrene medical staff moved among them like ghosts, doing what little they could with their limited resources. Henry could see the despair in their movements. These were doctors who knew they were losing the battle. "Patricia, I need you to start collecting samples immediately," Henry said, his voice firm and focused.
"Get tissue samples, blood samples, everything you can."
"We need to understand what this virus is and how it works." Dr. Moore was already moving, her portable medical scanner in hand. She went from patient to patient with practiced efficiency, taking samples and recording data. Her eyes were fixed on the scanner's readouts, and Henry could see her frown deepening as she worked. "This is very strange," Patricia muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "The virus structure is incredibly complex. It is almost too perfect, like someone designed it specifically to do maximum damage." Dr. Sylvan, who was standing nearby, heard this comment and looked alarmed. "Designed? Doctor, are you suggesting this disease was created deliberately? That someone made it as a weapon?" Patricia looked up from her scanner, her expression careful. "I am saying it shows characteristics that we usually see in viruses that have undergone directed evolution. But that could be a natural process in certain extreme environments. I need more data before I can say anything for certain." While the scientists worked on understanding the disease, Kyle was doing what combat medics do best. He was organizing chaos into order. He moved through the ward with quick, efficient movements, examining patients and marking them with colored tags. Red tags for critical patients who needed immediate care, yellow tags for serious cases that could wait a little longer, green tags for patients who were stable enough to recover with basic care. The thalrene nurses watched in amazement as Kyle worked. He lifted patients that would have required mechanical equipment for the delicate thalrene to move. He worked quickly but carefully, his hands steady even in the face of so much suffering. To the thalrene, who struggled with physical labor, Kyle seemed impossibly strong. One of the thalrene nurses approached Kyle as he was moving a patient to a better location. "Your physical strength is remarkable," the nurse said, their voice filled with wonder. "How much gravity do you train in to become so powerful?" Kyle smiled as he gently placed the patient on a clean bed. "This planet has about 60% of Earth's gravity. For us, working here feels like everything is in slow motion. Back home I could not lift this much, but here it is easy." He paused, then added kindly, "But strength is not just about muscles. You and your colleagues have been working without rest to save your people. That takes a different kind of strength, and I respect that very much." Back in the hospital's research laboratory, Henry was reviewing the data that Patricia had collected. He sat at a thalrene computer terminal, which was designed for their smaller, more delicate hands. His human fingers felt clumsy on the controls, but he managed. The data on the screen was troubling, and the more he looked at it, the more concerned he became. "Dr. Sylvan, can you explain something to me?" Henry asked, pulling up a map of the planet. "According to your records, this disease appeared in 3 different cities at the same time. Those cities are thousands of kilometers apart, on different continents. How is that possible if this is a natural outbreak?" Dr. Sylvan looked at the map, and Henry could see the confusion in the alien's body language. "We thought perhaps it was spread by migrating animals. Some of our native species travel great distances during certain seasons, but we could not find any evidence of infected animals." "That is because animals did not spread this," Patricia said, walking over to join them. Her face was grim, and she carried her scanner like it contained terrible news. "Dr. Brooks, we need to talk. In private." Henry and Patricia moved to a sealed containment room, a space designed for working with dangerous materials. Once the door was closed and locked, Patricia activated her scanner and projected a holographic image into the air between them. The image showed the virus structure in incredible detail, rotating slowly so they could see every part of it. "Look at this carefully," Patricia said, pointing to specific parts of the virus structure. This virus has genetic markers from 3 completely different stellar regions. That is impossible in nature. Someone took genetic material from multiple sources and combined them deliberately. And here, these protein sequences, they are specifically designed to bypass thalrine immune responses. This virus was engineered, Henry. Someone created it specifically to kill thalrine. Henry felt a cold anger settling in his chest. He had spent his entire career fighting disease and death. The idea that someone would create a disease deliberately, that someone would use biology as a weapon against innocent people, made him sick. "You are absolutely certain about this?" he asked, though he could already see the proof in the data. "I am certain," Patricia said firmly. "This was biological warfare, Henry. And whoever did it tried very hard to make it look like a natural outbreak. They wanted the thalrine to die without anyone knowing it was murder." Henry was quiet for a moment, thinking through the implications. Then he asked the question that mattered most to their mission. "What about humans? Can this virus affect us?" Patricia shook her head. "That is the good news. The virus is extremely specialized. It targets specific aspects of thalrine brain chemistry and nervous system function. Our nervous systems work completely differently. We could work with infected patients without protective suits and not get sick. But we should still wear the suits just to be safe and to avoid panicking the thalrine." "We definitely keep wearing the suits," Henry agreed. "But we need to contact Captain Morrison immediately. This stopped being just a medical emergency the moment we discovered it was a biological weapon. This is an act of war, Patricia. Someone attacked the thalrine with a disease designed to commit genocide." Henry pulled out his communication device and sent an emergency message to the USS Valkyrie. Captain Morrison needed to know what they had found. The thalrine needed to know the truth about what had happened to them. And someone, somewhere in this galaxy, needed to be held accountable for creating and releasing a weapon designed to destroy an entire species. As Henry waited for the captain to respond, he looked back toward the critical care ward. The sick thalrine lying in those beds were not just victims of disease. They were victims of a deliberate attack, of someone's cold calculation that an entire species was worth sacrificing for whatever. Captain Jake Morrison read Dr. Brooks's report 3 times, and each time he felt his anger growing. Biological warfare was something humanity had abandoned centuries ago, after learning the terrible lesson that such weapons could not be controlled. They hurt everyone, guilty and innocent alike. The fact that someone in this galaxy was using bioweapons against a peaceful species like the thalrine made Jake's blood boil. "Amy, get me High Coordinator Velith on a secure channel," Jake ordered. "And tell Commander Grant I need her on the bridge immediately." While he waited, Jake studied the tactical display showing the positions of all ships in the system. The Kryn vessels were still maintaining their quarantine patrol, but something about their formation bothered him. They were not just watching for ships trying to escape. They were positioned like a blockade, like they were preparing for something. Commander Lisa Grant arrived on the bridge within minutes, moving with the quick efficiency of a trained soldier. "You called for me, Captain?" "I need you to run continuous scans on those Kryn ships," Jake said quietly so only Lisa could hear. "Watch their power signatures, their shield frequencies, everything. If they so much as twitch wrong, I want to know about it instantly." Lisa's eyes narrowed slightly. She understood the unspoken message. The captain suspected the Kryn might be involved in this somehow, and she agreed with him. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. "Understood, sir. I will keep our weapon systems on standby as well, just in case." The view screen flickered to life, showing High Coordinator Velith. The thalrine leader looked even more exhausted than before, but there was also something else in their expression now. A tiny bit of hope, perhaps. "Captain Morrison, I hope you have good news for us." "High Coordinator, we need to discuss something very serious," Jake said, his voice grave. "My medical team has been analyzing the virus that is killing your people. They have found evidence that this disease was not natural. Someone deliberately engineered it. This was not an accident or a random outbreak. This was a biological weapon designed specifically to target the thalrine species." The color drained from Velith's already pale face. The High Coordinator seemed to shrink in their chair, as if the weight of this news was physically crushing them. "Are you absolutely certain of this, Captain? Could there be any mistake?" "My virologist is very confident in her analysis. The genetic markers do not lie. Someone created this virus and released it on your planet. Hi, Coordinator, I need to ask you something important. Does your species have any enemies? Is there anyone who would benefit from weakening or destroying the Thalreen? Before Velith could answer, alarm klaxons began blaring across the bridge of the USS Valkyrie. Red warning lights flashed on every control panel. Commander Grant's voice cut through the noise, sharp and urgent. Captain, the Kryn ships are powering up their weapon systems. All 6 vessels are breaking from their patrol pattern and moving into attack formation. What? Jake spun away from the view screen to look at the tactical display. Sure enough, the Kryn warships were accelerating, their weapons hot and ready. But they were not targeting the USS Valkyrie. They were moving toward the planet itself, toward the civilian evacuation ships that were trying to get refugees to safety. Captain Morrison, what is happening? Velith's voice was filled with panic now. Those ships, they are full of civilians. Children, elderly, sick people trying to reach safer areas. Jake's mind was racing, putting pieces together. The bioweapon, the convenient quarantine, the Kryn ships positioned perfectly to control all movement in the system. This was not enforcement. This was an invasion. High Coordinator, you need to get your government to safety immediately. Get them underground, somewhere protected. Do it now. Jake cut the channel with Velith and opened one to the Kryn commander. All stations, battle alert. This is not a drill. Amy, try to hail Commander Zrathak. Lisa, bring all weapon systems online but hold fire until I give the order. Greg, plot an intercept course for those Kryn ships. Put us between them and those civilian vessels. The bridge transformed as the crew moved into combat mode. Hidden panels slid aside, revealing additional weapon control stations. The gentle lighting changed to a harsh red. The USS Valkyrie's peaceful medical appearance began to fade away, revealing the warship underneath. This was what human ships really were. Tools designed to save lives, yes, but also ready to fight when necessary. Captain, Commander Zrathak is responding to our hail, Amy announced. The Kryn commander's face appeared on the view screen, and Jake immediately saw that something had changed. The cold professionalism was gone. Now there was something else in those yellow eyes, something that looked almost like satisfaction, like a predator that had finally cornered its prey. Human vessel, stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded, Zrathak said, his voice carrying a tone of command. The Thalreen colony has been declared a complete contamination risk. All vessels in this system will be destroyed to prevent the disease from spreading to other worlds. This includes your ship, Captain Morrison. Jake felt ice in his veins. Commander, you are talking about murdering billions of innocent civilians. The Thalreen have done nothing wrong. They are victims of a biological attack. Zrathak's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile, revealing those sharp teeth. I am talking about necessary action to protect the Galactic Assembly. The Thalreen have always been weak, Captain. They contributed little beyond art and philosophy. Their world has resources that could be put to better use under proper Kryn management. This virus simply provided us with the perfect opportunity. Once the population is reduced to manageable levels, we will come in as saviors and take control. It is a clean solution to a long-standing problem. There it was. The confession. The Kryn had not just enforced a quarantine. They had created the crisis. They had released the bioweapon, and now they were moving to finish the job by destroying anyone who might escape or tell the truth about what happened here. Jake stood up from his command chair, his voice deadly calm. Commander Zrathak, you have just made a very serious mistake. Amy, send an emergency transmission to Earth Command. Use the combat authorization code. Tell them we are engaging a hostile force that has committed genocide against a member species of the Galactic Assembly. Lisa, target the Kryn ships. Weapons free. Greg, get us between them and those evacuation vessels. Maximum speed. Zrathak's expression changed to one of disbelief and then contempt. Human, you command a medical vessel. We have 12 warships. Your posturing is brave but completely pointless. You cannot possibly win this fight. Jake smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that had been underestimated. Commander, let me tell you something about humans. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We developed medicine not just to heal the sick, but to keep our warriors fighting longer and harder. Every single ship in the human fleet, from our smallest cargo shuttle to our largest battleship, is built for combat. Because in our part of space, we learned that there is no such thing as a safe journey. He took a step closer to the view screen. You asked why a medical vessel carries weapons of war, Commander? Because to humans there is no difference. We fight to protect life. We heal to continue the fight. And right now, protecting the Thalreen means stopping you. Jake did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Lisa, fire. The USS Valkyrie's railgun fired first. The weapon used magnetic acceleration to launch a solid metal projectile at incredible speed. The round crossed the distance between ships in less than 2 seconds. The Kryn destroyer it hit never had a chance. Its energy shields were designed to stop laser weapons and missiles. They did absolutely nothing against a chunk of metal traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile punched through the Kryn ship like it was made of paper. Secondary explosions rippled along the destroyer's length as vital systems failed. The ship broke in half, venting atmosphere and debris into space. Direct hit, Lisa reported, her voice professionally calm despite the adrenaline that must be pumping through her veins. 1 Kryn destroyer destroyed. 11 enemy vessels remaining. All Kryn ships are now targeting us. They are breaking off their attack on the evacuation ships. Good, Jake said grimly. Better they focus on us than on defenseless civilians. Greg, evasive pattern Delta 7. Keep us moving. Do not give them an easy target. Lisa, continue engaging. Make every shot count. The USS Valkyrie began to move like a ship possessed. Despite her size, she danced through space with the grace of a fighter craft. Greg's hands flew across his controls, using every bit of the low Thalreen gravity in this system to perform maneuvers that should have been impossible for a vessel this large. Missiles streaked past, missing by meters. Laser fire that should have hit them passed through empty space where they had been just a moment before. And all the while, the Valkyrie's weapons kept firing. Point defense lasers tracked and destroyed incoming missiles before they could reach the hull. The railgun fired again and again, each shot carefully aimed and devastating. The missile batteries launched their payloads in coordinated volleys, overwhelming the Kryn ship's defenses through sheer numbers and smart targeting. The Kryn had numbers and experience on their side. But the battle lasted exactly 47 minutes from first shot to final explosion. When it was over, the USS Valkyrie hung in space with her white hull scorched black in places, and several armor plates cracked from near misses. But she was still intact, still functional, still ready to fight if needed. Around her floated the wreckage of what had once been a Kryn patrol fleet. 12 ships had come to enforce their genocidal plan. None of them would be going home. Commander Zrathak's ship had been the last to fall. Jake had given him multiple chances to surrender, broadcasting ceasefire offers on every frequency. But the Kryn commander had refused each time, choosing to fight to the very end. His ship had gone down firing, launching its final missiles even as internal explosions tore it apart. It was a waste of life, but Jake understood the impulse. Some people would rather die than admit they were wrong. The bridge was quiet except for the soft beeping of various systems. The crew sat at their stations, tired but still focused. They had done something today that would have consequences far beyond this single star system. They had destroyed the ships of a major galactic assembly species. Earth Command was going to have a lot of explaining to do. Captain, I am receiving multiple hails, Amy reported, breaking the silence. Some are from the planet. High Coordinator Veleth wants to speak with you, but we are also getting calls from the Galactic Assembly headquarters. They are demanding to know what happened here. Jake took a deep breath. This was going to be complicated. Put High Coordinator Veleth through first. They deserve to hear from us before anyone else. The view screen showed Veleth, and the Thalreen leader looked completely stunned. Their large eyes were even wider than usual, and they seemed unable to find words at first. Finally they spoke, their voice shaking with emotion. Captain Morrison, what you did, what your crew accomplished, I do not have adequate words to express our gratitude. You saved our entire world. Every Thalreen alive owes you a debt we can never repay. High Coordinator, we are not done yet, Jake said gently. My medical teams are still working on a treatment for the virus. Dr. Brooks believes they are close to developing a cure. But we need to talk about what happens next after your people are healthy again. Veleth looked confused. What do you mean, Captain? Jake leaned forward in his command chair. The Kryn will not be the last species to try something like this. What happened here proves that the galaxy is more dangerous than you realized. The Thalreen are a peaceful people, and that is admirable. But peace requires protection. You need the ability to defend yourselves against those who would take advantage of your gentle nature. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Earth is prepared to offer the Thalreen a mutual defense treaty. We will help you build up defensive capabilities and provide military support when needed. In exchange, you share your medical knowledge and scientific research with us. Humans have the weapons and the willingness to fight when necessary. You have wisdom and healing abilities that we lack. Together, we would both be stronger. Before Velith could respond, another call came through on a priority channel. This one was from the Galactic Assembly Council itself, the governing body that included representatives from dozens of different species. The view screen split to show multiple alien faces, all looking various degrees of shocked, angry, or frightened. The council speaker was a being from the Ventax Collective, a species known for their diplomatic skills and neutral positions. They looked at Jake with an expression that might have been disapproval or might have been concern. It was hard to tell with alien faces. Captain Morrison of the human vessel USS Valkyrie, you have destroyed an entire Kryn patrol fleet. This is an act of war against a member species of the Galactic Assembly. We demand your immediate surrender and a full explanation of your actions. Jake had been preparing for this conversation since the moment he gave the order to fire. Council Speaker, members of the Assembly, I understand your concern. But with all due respect, the Kryn committed an act of war first. They engineered a biological weapon designed to commit genocide against the Thalreen species. They released that weapon on Thalreen Prime, and when we discovered their crime, they attempted to destroy all witnesses, including civilian evacuation ships full of refugees. He gestured to Amy, who began transmitting data to the Council. We have physical evidence of the bioweapon. We have recorded transmissions where Commander Zrathak admitted to the Kryn plan to use the virus as an excuse to take control of Thalreen territory. We have sensor logs showing the Kryn ships targeting unarmed civilian vessels. Everything I'm telling you can be verified through independent investigation. The council chamber erupted in argument. Some species were clearly horrified by the accusations against the Kryn. Others seemed more concerned with the precedent of a newer species like humanity attacking an established member. And a few, Jake noted with interest, seemed completely unsurprised by what the Kryn had done. That suggested this might not be the first time the Kryn had tried something like this. The speaker called for order, and eventually the chamber quieted down. Captain Morrison, these are extremely serious accusations. The Council will review all the evidence you have provided and conduct a thorough investigation. In the meantime, you and your vessel are ordered to remain in the Thalreen system. You are not permitted to leave until the Council reaches a decision about your actions. We will remain here as long as necessary, Speaker. Jake replied calmly. My medical teams are not finished treating the sick anyway. We came here to save lives, and that mission is not complete. But I want to make something clear to the Council. Humanity will not apologize for defending innocent people against genocide. If standing up to murderers makes us criminals in the eyes of the Assembly, then we will accept that judgment. But we will not regret our actions. The transmission ended, and Jake sat back in his chair. The next few weeks were going to be interesting. Earth Command would either back him up or hang him out to dry. The Galactic Assembly would either see the truth or condemn humanity for violence. Either way, there was no going back now. The galaxy had seen what happened when someone threatened innocence in front of humans. Down on the planet, Dr. Brooks and his team were making remarkable progress. The combination of human immune system research and Thalreen medical knowledge was proving to be exactly what was needed. Patricia had identified the specific proteins the virus used to attack Thalreen nervous systems. Kyle and the human nurses were working 20-hour shifts, caring for patients with a level of physical endurance the Thalreen could never match. And slowly, patients who had been at death's door were beginning to recover. Within 1 week, they had developed not just a treatment but also a vaccine. Dr. Sylvan stood beside Henry in the research lab, watching as the first batch of medicine was produced. The Thalreen doctor looked at Henry with something close to wonder. This is remarkable, Dr. Brooks. Your species' long history of fighting diseases gave you insights that we never would have considered. You think like a virus thinks because you have been at war with them since before you had civilization? Henry smiled tiredly. He had not slept more than 4 hours a night since they arrived, pushing himself to find a cure as fast as possible. On Earth we have a saying, Dr. Sylvan, what does not kill you makes you stronger. Humanity has been almost killed more times than we can count. Diseases, predators, climate changes, wars, we have survived it all. And each time we learn something new. Now we can use that knowledge to help make sure your people survive too. The Galactic Assembly's investigation took 3 weeks. During that time, more species came forward with their own stories of Kryn aggression. There were reports of suspicious accidents that had befallen species who opposed Kryn proposals. There were unexplained outbreaks of disease on planets that had valuable resources the Kryn wanted. There were even a few cases of entire colonies disappearing without explanation, always in regions where the Kryn had expressed interest. It turned out the Kryn had been using their position as the Assembly's enforcers to quietly expand their power and territory. They had been eliminating rivals and enemies through methods that could not be easily traced back to them. The bioweapon attack on Thalreen Prime was just the first one to fail, because it was the first time they had encountered a species that refused to let them get away with it. When the Council finally reconvened to announce their decision, the verdict was unanimous. The Kryn were expelled from the Galactic Assembly. Their territory was placed under joint protection by multiple species to prevent them from attempting further aggression. And humanity, the species everyone had been so wary of when they first joined the Assembly, were formally recognized as protectors of medical and peaceful species. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valkyrie as they prepared to depart from Thalreen Prime. The planet below looked healthy again. The disease had been stopped, the vaccine distributed, and the Thalreen were beginning to rebuild. Human and Thalreen medical personnel were working together now, sharing knowledge and training the next generation of healers who would understand both the science of medicine and the necessity of protecting the innocent. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command. 6 months had passed since the incident at Thalreen Prime, and the galaxy was still adjusting to the changes that followed. The Medical Defense Corps had grown from 1 ship to 6, each vessel a perfect balance of healing and protection. They had responded to emergencies across a dozen different star systems, and every time they arrived, they brought not just medical expertise but also the promise that no one would be allowed to prey on the weak and sick. Fleet Captain Jake Morrison sat in his office aboard the USS Valkyrie, reviewing reports from the other ships in his command. The USS Guardian had just finished helping with a mining accident on a Ventax colony. The USS Mercy was providing medical support to refugees from a civil war. The USS Hope was training local doctors on a newly colonized world. Each ship was making a difference, proving that the combination of human strength and compassion could change lives. A soft chime indicated someone was at his door. "Come in," Jake called out. Dr. Henry Brooks entered, carrying a data pad and wearing the small smile that meant he had good news. "Captain, I thought you would want to see the latest health reports from Thalreen Prime. The vaccine is working even better than we hoped. The infection rate has dropped to less than 1%, and the mortality rate for new cases is down to almost nothing. They are going to beat this thing completely within another few months." Jake felt genuine happiness at that news. "That is excellent, Henry. Your team did remarkable work there. How is Dr. Sylvan doing?" "Thriving, actually. The Thalreen medical community has embraced the new collaborative approach. They are sharing their knowledge with human doctors, and we are teaching them about treating trauma and working in hostile environments. It is a genuine partnership." Henry paused, then added, "Dr. Sylvan asked me to tell you that 3 young Thalreen doctors have applied to join the Medical Defense Corps. They want to serve on human ships and help protect other species the way we protected them." That news made Jake pause. The idea of fragile Thalreen serving on human warships seemed impossible at first. But then he thought about it more carefully. The Thalreen might not be able to lift heavy equipment or work in high gravity, but they had medical knowledge that humans were only beginning to understand. They had a gentleness in treating patients that came naturally to their species. And most importantly, they had courage. They had seen the worst that could happen and decided to stand up against it. "Accept their applications," Jake said firmly. "We will need to make some modifications to accommodate their needs, but I think having Thalreen doctors in the Corps would be valuable. It would also send a message to the galaxy that this is not just a human organization. It is a coalition of those who care about protecting life." Henry nodded in agreement. "I will start working on the necessary ship modifications. Thalreen need lower gravity and different atmospheric conditions, but we can create specialized quarters for them. It will be good to have their perspective on the team." After Henry left, Jake stood and walked to the large window that looked out into space. The stars looked the same as they always had, bright points of light in the darkness. But Jake knew that the galaxy itself had changed. Word of what happened at Thalreen Prime had spread to every corner of known space. Some species saw humanity as heroes, others saw them as dangerous. But everyone understood now that humans were not to be underestimated. The Kryn were still out there, though their influence had been greatly reduced. They had lost their position in the Galactic Assembly and their role as enforcers. Several Kryn worlds had actually broken away from their central government, declaring that they had no part in the genocide attempt and wanted to pursue a different path. It would take generations before anyone trusted the Kryn again if they ever did. But the bigger change was in how other species viewed the concepts of strength and protection. For thousands of years, the Galactic Assembly had operated on the assumption that peaceful species should avoid military power. Violence was seen as something primitive, something that advanced civilizations grew beyond. The arrival of humanity had challenged that assumption. Humans had shown the galaxy that you could be both compassionate and strong. You could heal the sick while also defending them from those who would do harm. You could value peace while still being ready for war. It was a balance that most species had never even considered, but now they were beginning to understand its necessity. Jake's communicator beeped, indicating an incoming message. It was Amy from the bridge. "Captain, we are receiving a priority distress call. It is from a Ventax research station near the frontier. They are reporting an outbreak of some kind of radiation poisoning. Multiple casualties. They are specifically requesting the Medical Defense Corps." Jake felt the familiar surge of purpose that came with every call for help. This was what they did. This was why the Medical Defense Corps existed. "Sound General Quarters. Get Dr. Brooks and his team ready for deployment. Calculate the fastest route to the Ventax station. How long until we can be there?" "If we push the engines to maximum 18 hours, sir, then that is what we do. Also, contact the USS Guardian. They are in that sector and might be closer. See if they can provide initial response while we are in transit." Jake started walking toward the bridge, his mind already shifting into mission mode. "And Amy, broadcast our response on all frequencies. Let everyone know that help is on the way." As Jake reached the bridge, he saw his crew already moving with practiced efficiency. They had done this enough times now that everyone knew their role without needing to be told. The Valkyrie's engines powered up to full thrust. Medical teams began preparing their equipment. Sensors started scanning for any potential threats along their route. Commander Lisa Grant looked up from her tactical station. "Captain, should I bring weapons systems online?" Jake nodded. "Always, Commander. We learned that lesson at Thalreen Prime. We hope for medical emergencies that stay medical emergencies, but we prepare for everything." The USS Valkyrie jumped to hyperspace, racing toward another crisis that needed both healing and protection. Behind them, the other ships of the Medical Defense Corps received notification and began adjusting their own positions. They were becoming a network of safety across the galaxy, ready to respond wherever they were needed. Back on Earth, the story of the Valkyrie and the Thalreen had become something of a legend. It was taught in military academies as an example of tactical thinking under pressure. It was discussed in medical schools as a case study in emergency response, and it was told in civilian schools as a story about standing up for those who could not defend themselves. Children playing in parks would pretend to be Fleet Captain Morrison, using sticks as railguns and declaring they were going to save the galaxy. Parents would tell their kids about how humanity had shown the stars that Deathworlders could be heroes. And young people looking at the stars and dreaming about their future increasingly wanted to join the Medical Defense Corps, to be part of something that mattered. Throughout the Galactic Assembly, the reaction was more complex but no less significant. Some species had begun developing their own defensive capabilities, inspired by the human example. They were realizing that leaving all military power in the hands of a few aggressive species had been a mistake. True security came from being able to protect yourself and those you cared about. Other species were forming alliances with humanity, seeking protection and offering knowledge in return. The Ventax had shared their advanced computer technology. The peaceful Dalarian people had opened their libraries of ancient history. The insectoid Chirrut had provided insights into biology that were revolutionizing human medicine. It was becoming a true exchange, with each species contributing what they did best. And through it all, the Medical Defense Corps kept growing. More ships were being built. More doctors and nurses were volunteering. And now, with the Thalreen joining, it was becoming something even bigger than just a human organization. It was becoming a symbol of what the galaxy could be when different species worked together with a common purpose. Jake stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, watching the stars streak past as they raced toward another emergency. He thought about that first distress call from Thalreen Prime, how it had seemed like a simple medical mission, how none of them had known they were about to change the course of galactic history. Sometimes the most important moments in your life looked ordinary, until you were in the middle of them. The aliens had asked for medics, and humanity had answered with warships. At first, that had seemed like a contradiction, like humanity was unable to separate healing from fighting. But now Jake understood it was not a contradiction at all. It was the truth about what it meant to really care about protecting life. You did not just treat the symptoms. You defended against the disease. You did not just heal the wounded. You prevented the wounding in the first place. The greatest doctors were not the ones who could perform the most difficult surgeries. They were the ones who understood that medicine existed in a real world, a dangerous world, and that healing had to be protected if it was going to succeed. The best warriors were not the ones with the biggest weapons. They were the ones who understood that strength existed to defend the weak, not to dominate them. Humanity had brought both of